Gaurav, could you turn your camera on? All right, just give me 1 second. So welcome. So welcome everyone to this session on what firms look for when hiring. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for the session, Mr. Gaurav Bansal. Mr. Bansal is a partner in the competition practice group at EZB and Partners. He's based out of Mumbai, and Mr. Bansal boasts over 10 years of experience in advising on all aspects of competition law. With a wealth of expertise that spans multiple industries, including automotive, airlines, FMCG, steel, digital markets, cement, telecommunications, and even pharmaceuticals. Throughout his career, Mr. Bansal has advised clients on several high profile cross border and domestic merger filings, including Tata Group's recent USD 2.4 billion acquisition of Air India. He has also been involved in many other landmark deals, such as Vista and Elliott's USD 6.5 billion acquisition of Citrix, Tata Group's acquisition of India's largest e-grocery retailer, Big Basket, and the $20 billion investment in JPL by Facebook. He has represented Interglobe Aviation Limited and Wholesome Lafarge Group before the Competition Appellate Authority, Tata Motors in proceedings before the Delhi High Court in CCI, Godrej and Boyce in proceedings before the CCI, and many more. A prolific writer on competition-related issues, Mr. Bansal has contributed to several leading global journals and assisted in the drafting of the first antitrust manual for the compliance during COVID-19. He is widely recognized for his expertise and has been named a rising star in antitrust law by the Legal 500 and comes recommended by IFLR. Now, over to Mr. Bansal.
Thanks, Karan, for the very humble introduction. So, quite contrary to competition law, I'm going to speak to you about a very different topic, which is not my forte at all. But I'll give you a very practical perspective of what we really look out for when we are hiring people from campuses or even otherwise lateral hires as well, right? So uh, this session is more about what I have learned over the last 10 years, and what do I look for when I meet a young lawyer like you, many of you. And um, I'll just keep it very simple, very basic. Don't expect anything very like a uh, uh, HR crazy stuff from me. Maybe we'll have somebody else organize that for you guys. But I'll give you a very practical perspective. And feel free to drop in questions. I think there is a Q&A link as well. But in the next 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I'll just take you through my exposure, my experience, and in terms of what a really solid lawyer should look like, who wants to practice law in a law firm or otherwise, right? So, and this, I've sort of segregated this talk into, I'm not using any presentation, I've segregated this talk into broadly three different buckets. The first bucket is I'll be talking about few skill sets that can be learned during the college years, right? And which basically everything transpires. A lot of the skill set transpires into your internship, in your interviews, in your group discussions during campus placements, etc. So first is a bucket of skill sets that basically you can learn during the college. The second is a bunch of personal attributes which people look out for, which you must be aware of, right? And the third one is basically, what are the basic principles to be kept in mind when you're sitting for an interview or when you are basically, doing an internship, for instance, right? So I think, these are the three broad buckets we'll be discussing. After I finish each bucket, I'll open the floor to ask questions, and I'll take questions on the go as well. So let me start with the very first bucket, which is that, what is it that you can learn during college? I'm not talking about your substantive knowledge of law. That is a given, that you must be investing a lot of your time in investing in studies and in, learning law, right? That's what you're there for. You'll be learning from your professors. You'll be investing a lot of time doing a lot of self-reading as well. In addition to, of course, extracurricular activity, right? So a combination of all of that is important for you to become an overall groomed person, right? So it can't just be study and no game. But what is it that you must develop in your time during college? So the very first one is communication, right? We as lawyers are, all about communication. That's what I've learned in the last 10 years. Your written communication has to be powerful. Your oral communication has to be powerful. It has to be impactful, right? It has to be impactful. It has to be concise. It has to be very clear, right? So what are lawyers for? Lawyers are for understanding, a lot of legalese, a lot of boring stuff, a lot of regulations, right? A lot of complex stuff as well, and distilling all of that down into very easily communicable, words to the clients, right? So effectively, when you're doing an internship or when you're doing you're in an interview, whatever you know, right? Whatever is there in your CV. Let's say in your CV, you have written that you have done a lot of research in X internship, in an internship with AZB, in relation to, let's say, right to privacy under constitutional law, or right of speech under constitutional law, right? You must know, you must be able to distill what you have done, what you understand, in very easy, communicably, clear and concise manner to the person that you're talking to. And that leaves an impression. That leaves an impression that, look, you know what, this person can think and this person can easily communicate their thoughts. And that comes with a lot of focus on it. It comes with a lot of practice and it comes with a lot of focus, right? So, how does college give you this platform to make use of this skill or hone this skill better, right? One, you guys have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of presentations, right? I'm assuming that, in your courses, you would have, requirements to make presentation to your seniors or your teachers, faculties, right? Use these skills to hone these skills when you're doing something like that, right? When you're drafting something, when you're writing an article, right? Write articles, right? Write small articles, right? And I have been a Jindal alumni, so I know there's a lot of focus on article writing. There's a lot of focus on creative writing as well, right? So use that time productively. It's extremely important. If you really want to become a good lawyer, if you really want to succeed as a lawyer, right? So article writing, a lot of, I know that even during exams, anyways, let's not talk about exams. That's where you can't do a lot of creative writing, but article writing for sure, discussing with your peers about some legal problem, working on each other, working during presentation, and moot courts. Moot court is when all your creativity, mental creativity, oral communication creativity, and written creativity can come into place. Use this time to invest in these kind of activities, right? The more you do it, the easier it will become, when you enter into the professional world, to pick things up, right? So this is one thing that I would really want all of you to focus on. A lot, when people come during internships, the very first few assignments that we give is preparing a summary, right? And if your summary, and I think a summary of a case gives me a very fair idea about how much this person has understood the case, right? So, and it also reflects your thought process, it reflects your understanding, and of course, it reflects your drafting, right? So effectively, that is extremely important. Do focus on communication whenever you're in an internship, meeting a senior. Make sure that the point that you're come up with very specific thought through topics that you want to discuss with your seniors or your peers or your colleagues, that you're working with during the internship, and discuss those topics with them, right? That will just allow you to better your communication skills. So this is something that I wanted to spend a little bit of time on with you guys, which is that that has to be a key focus as somebody who wants to work in a law firm or in-house or anywhere actually, but particularly in law firms, that's something which is really considered to be very, very important, and that can actually make or break things. The second one I would quickly move on to is time management. We hear a lot of these things that, law firms are crazy, there is a lot of work pressure, you can't deal with timelines, the work environment is stressful, and what I've seen or what I've experienced myself over the years is that if you are better at time management, if you know how to prioritize things, if you spend time doing different things, you become better at it. You just become better at managing things, right? Now, of course, a lot of it comes through when you start working, because of course, things are new to you when you start working. But if you have invested a lot of time in your college years doing different things, then your prospective employer will know that, this person has ability to manage studies, get good grades, along with doing moot courts, maybe doing maybe becoming part of some society, cultural society, or some other extracurricular activity that you can consider your investing your time in, right? Or maybe a part-time job. I mean, there are so many options, right? But if you really want to make sure that you have that, and irrespective of where you go, law firms are that ways, slightly more demanding in a way that you will get to work with multiple seniors, expecting you to deliver multiple work products over a period of time, and all of them will be going in parallel, right? So it becomes slightly strenuous if you're not used to managing different things in life. Generally, I'm saying, right? Some of us are extremely focused. If you want to study, we'll just keep studying, right? If you're basically not into studies, then you'll just not study at all. Right? It could be anything. If you're into sports, then you're just into sports, right? But using this time to balance all these priorities, right? Carefully investing your time in studies, carefully investing your time in sports, extracurricular activities, your friends, your other interests, families, etc. Right? Try and think about it. If you've already practiced it, then you know how to manage things. So that is something which is a distinct feature of working in law firm. I'm not saying just law firm, even in-house in those sense, you'll be expected to work on multiple deliverables, slightly comparatively, maybe a little lower, but it's this factor applies equally on both scenarios. The third one and the most important one, again, is especially when you're doing your internships, because you need to bring your A game during your internships, right? In an interview, it becomes difficult to test how your attention to detail is towards facts. But especially when you're interning and trying to convert that internship into a job, or even if let's say you're a newly freshly recruited associate or a trainee associate, what people really look for is whether they can trust you, right? And by by saying that, whether they can trust you, I effectively mean whether you have a good attention to detail, whether you have a full honesty towards the work that is given to you, a full focus and full honesty, dedication towards the work that is given to you, right? Whatever file that is given to you and wherever you are, it's not law firm specific, wherever you are, read your files in and out, know your facts in and out, because the senior that you will be reporting to will basically come up with some sort of a legal solution or discuss a legal solution with you based on the facts that you will brief your senior. And even while those briefings, of course, you will definitely be asked about those facts, because of course people with more experience can just understand facts better, even though they haven't read those facts, right? They might ask you so many questions. And if you don't know your facts, what you lose is effectively your credibility, right? So let's say you're doing a presentation, or you're doing some sort of let's say a assessment presentation, or you're just discussing some case law with one of your colleagues in the law, in a law firm setup. Let's say you're interning, and during the presentation, you're asked, questions on that particular case law, or you have referred to many case laws and you're asked questions on those case laws, right? And you don't know those cases in and out. That's a total, that basically means that you don't, first, maybe, you don't want to make that kind of an investment. And second is that, you don't have attention to detail, right? So effectively, that is a slightly different example. What I really meant was that, as a young associate or as an intern, what you should do is that whatever task is given to you, just go to the depth of it. Just go to the depth of it, right? People really appreciate that. People know that, if I've given this work to this person, that person will do 100% full job. Of course, there is scope of error, but as long as you can say that, look, I did my best, this is all that I did to make sure that, whatever I tell you is there, it's fine. People understand. But that's something which is extremely important. Keep it in mind. Really, really important. Not, becomes extremely important as a young lawyer, as a fresh lawyer. Over a period of time, your role changes. You start trusting your juniors to do everything with full, to read the files thoroughly. But even then, right? It's my job even now to make sure that I had thought about all aspects, that I, had understood things in and out. So that's your job as a lawyer, which is the third one, being attention to detail. The fourth one is a very straightforward one. I think it's very much sort of, expected these days, and especially if you're coming from an institute like Jindal, it's certainly more expected, which is, your substantive ability as lawyers, like your substantive knowledge as lawyers, right? So whatever subjects you're reading, whatever is being taught to you in law school, your fundamentals have to be good, right? Communication, attention to detail, all of those things are on one hand. But if your fundamentals are not good, you won't crack it. People will get to know. You will just get to know, right? So let's say you want to do, competition law, and you don't know the basics of competition law. In 5 questions, I'll get to know that, your basics are not clear, right? And people can just understand that. And even if, let's say, you crack it in an interview, the job will become really tough, right? So, and what I'm effectively discussing is that, put your heart into what you do, right? If you love law, if you like to do a particular subject, or if you want to specialize in a particular subject, read it with full honesty, with full integrity, right? And that's something which is extremely important. It's a very basic prerequisite, but I feel that it's very important to communicate this, right? Your interpretation of statutes, constitutional law, these are very fundamental subjects. You might choose to do intellectual property, you might choose to do competition law, or you might want to become a transaction lawyer. But if your basics of interpretation of statutes are not clear, it won't, it won't cut it. So these are fundamental subjects. Your foundational principles have to be strong, which I know in general, you have fantastic faculty, right? So, make use of that. Make use of that exposure. And I'll finally discuss the fifth skill set before moving on to personal attributes, which is commercial awareness. Basically, if you're interested in a particular subject, if you're interning in a particular specific area of interest, let's say you're interning with the competition law team, you must know what's happening in that sphere. What are the deals that CCI has cleared? What was CCI's assessment? What is the most debatable CCI's assessment in the last 1 year, 6 months? What happened in the Google order? Just basic, you must do your reading, right? What are the matters that might actually, what are the sectors that get CCI's attention? If you do this, so I'm not saying that it's a prerequisite, but I know how competitive the world is out there, right? And if you want to stand out, this is something that will make you stand out. It requires a lot of investment of time, energy, to do research, to come up with things so that you can discuss with your partner or your senior, right? Or to write about on something, right? You might just choose to write an article. And yeah, this is how you stand out, which is that, be proactive. Make sure that, display that curiosity to learn. I mean, one is that not just display, you must have a curiosity to learn. And if you have a curiosity to learn, then you must display that curiosity to learn, right? And that's what people look at. That's what we all look at in AZB. Do you have a curiosity to learn? If you have curiosity to learn, then we know that, there's somebody who just keeps, making more effort to become a better lawyer, right? Because at the end of the day, we are talking about a law firm. We are talking about getting a job in a law firm. So what is it that you want to become? You want to become a good lawyer. Good lawyers become through communication, through attention to detail, good foundational concepts, and time management, right? So these are the 5 basic principles, and commercial awareness if you want to stand out, right? So these are the 5 principles that you must focus on. And in terms of personal attributes, what I've really found, people who really go wrong and people who really do well, and this is what we also look for when we are hiring a prospective candidate, is that you must be somebody who has a basic discipline in place, and you must be somebody who's dependable, right? So if you see most of the, I mean, I follow cricket, so I know that, if you remember Rahul Dravid, right? I'm not sure if your generation is a lot younger to remember Rahul Dravid, but, a lot of these great sportsmen, they become great because they are dependable, right? And they're stable. So, what essentially a client looks for in a lawyer, or your prospective team would look for you, is whether they can trust you, whether they are dependable. Whenever they need you, will you be there, right? There's so many extraneous situations, and not just extraneous situations. Even usual work requires a lot of dependence and interdependence, right? Which is that I trust you and you trust me. And how do we do that? By making sure that we sort of work with each other in the most collaborative way. And therefore, reliability and dependability is an extremely important factor. So whenever you're, This is something that you must focus on when you're doing an internship if you want to convert. So not just during internship. So let's say you converted it. And when you start as a fresh lawyer, these are the things that will take you far. You might be a great lawyer, okay? You might be the one who can just think out of the box all the time, but you're not dependable. Attitude issue. You won't be given work because you're not dependable, right? So have these basic things in place, or make sure that, you know, the idea to tell this to you is not to, of course, scare you. These are very basic things. I don't even need to speak about this, right? It's just a refresher course in that sense, where I just tell you what we look out for, but I know that you already know, right? So this is something which is very important. The second most important stuff is integrity. So your professional integrity, right? You must be committed, you must be honest, forthright, right? So these things are again very basic, but professional integrity is very important. If you want to establish long-lasting, if you want to establish meaningful relationships with your senior, with your teams, with your clients, ultimately, you know, you might go wrong with a client on a particular aspect, okay? But if you have built that integrity with the client, that look, whatever I do, I only think about your best interests. If that message is clear to the client will never go away. Because they know that, look, this is the person who effectively thinks for me with total integrity. And that reflects in discussions. How much have you invested? How much have you invested your time in thinking about that matter? How much have you invested in thinking through different, you know, options about solving the problem, and then telling them that, you know what, this might not work for you for XYZ reason, but this will work for you. Even though, let's say, option A, which might not work for the client, might work for you as a lawyer because you will make a lot of money, right? But you still suggest option B, which works for the client and not you, because you end up making less money. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about professional integrity. Or giving legal solutions, not just about money, but just giving legal solutions, right? So that's extremely important if you want to build meaningful relationships with the team, with the client, with your seniors, with everyone in any system, right? Uh, the third one is, of course, listening and observing. We all want to speak. We all love to speak. I wish this was a two-way session where I could hear you as well, because I don't like this unilateral dialogue. If you want to become a good lawyer, you need to really be good in terms of your observation skills and just listening to the client, because there are discussions. There, once you enter work life, there will be discussions which will span and go into hours and hours, right? And in college, you might just switch off mentally, and you'll be like, "ठीक है यार, ये तो पढ़ लेंगे हम लोग बाद में. It's okay. Everything is written in a textbook. It's okay. Let me just switch my mind off from this particular lecture, or I might just talk to my friend during a lecture." But that doesn't cut it when you're in client meeting. So you have to build your skills to basically become that person who can actually listen to your client without any distraction. It's just so much important. I can't even, it's just extremely important characteristic of being a lawyer. If you listen to your client diligently, that's when you come up with solutions. And most of the times the devil lies in the details. And if you miss the details, you'll be just like any other lawyer, right? Most of the questions come from details. So this is something really important. Again, it's a personal attribute. The reason I'm saying it's a personal attribute is because you can adapt this, as a part of your characteristic as a person. You have to develop this as a part of your characteristic as a person, right? Nothing else. So this is very important. You need to have a creative and problem solving mindset. You know, what will make you stand out is basically if you're a creative problem solver. If a problem comes to you, and of course there are usual 4 ways to think about it. You have read the regulations, you have read the law, and there's a straightforward way of thinking about everything, and there's a different way of thinking about everything. That basically depends on your analytical skills. Where you shine through in your career, from right from the start, is if you have an ability to look at things in a different way, or if you have a proper analytical skill set, which makes you stand out from others. And I'm not saying this because there's a lot of competition. I'm just simply saying this if you really want to become a good lawyer. Most of the good lawyers, if you see Harish Salve, Abhishek Singh, why are they great lawyers? Or Azia Modi, why are they great lawyers? Because they have this ability, where they can think differently from others. They have developed a very different analytical skill framework through which they test every legal problem, right? So become creative. Law is actually very creative, right? At least that's why I love law. You can actually become so much creative with what you write, with how you think, right? So have that element. And I picked it up while I was in Jindal. There was this professor who taught us competition law, and he used to always think out of the box. And that's what I loved about that professor. And I was like, you know what? I want to become like him. I want to be the guy who basically, has a very holistic way of thinking, yet a very different way of thinking, and can bring some value add to the table, right? So that's something that you must focus on. And teamwork, basic, extremely important. I'm not a Superman. Don't carry this attitude. I'll do everything alone. I have to compete. If I give this research to this guy, then he will go above me. I know a lot of this happens. A lot of it happens in every workplace, and no senior likes it. Right? So, what everyone is striving for is a very collaborative work environment. Right? And if you have done a job, people will know that you have done that job. So credit is always given where it is due, but effectively build a mindset which is more collaborative, more teamwork oriented, because ultimately, you have to be a part of a team. The projects that you will deal with in a law firm are massive projects, right? Where this ability to be a part of the team, being collegial, being collaborative, being good to people, generally good and kind to people, humility, all of this is extremely important. So contrary to what you might all think, that very competitive atmosphere, this, that, people are there to cut each other out. Nobody wants it. Nobody, I can just, tell you as a matter of fact, nobody wants it. Everyone wants people to be collaborative. And that's what we follow in EasyEvry for sure, right? So that's I think so. With that, I've covered personal attributes as well. And the last one, I'll just quickly touch upon interview skills. Which effectively so these are basic things again, but I think in an interview, what you must make sure is that carry an attitude of positivity. That's one. Be positive, be confident. Sometimes we come across people who, during the course of interview, you can just see that they are negative about certain aspects of, about what has happened earlier, about what they think about this job or what they think about others, a bad experience. Don't be negative. Be positive. People don't want to see negativity, right? So be positive, be confident, right? Say what you know. Whatever you have written in your resume, you must know that in and out. Okay. So if you have done 5 internships and each internship in each year you have written three bullet points. I've researched on so and so. I've researched on legal metrology. I've also done this. I've also done that. Make sure that whatever you have done, you know it conceptually, and you can explain it well. If you want to rehearse, rehearse. Okay, because the moment your interviewer feels that, look, he has written something, but that person has not been explained, has not been able to explain that very clearly. He or she has not been able to explain it very clearly. That's not something that you would want to be in a situation. You wouldn't want to be in that kind of situation, right? So that's second. Maintain eye contact with an interviewer. That shows confidence. That just shows that people can trust you. It just affects. These things can affect, have a very different effect, right? It just creates a lot of trust, a lot of confidence, right? Your posture is so much important. If you are sitting like slouched, if you're sitting like this, or if you are sitting like this, it just makes sure that you're interested. You're there to get that job, right? So your posture actually also can create a lot of initial impressions about you in the first 90 seconds. There are studies about it, right? There are studies which says that, person make up a mind about another person in quarter of a second or something like that. But at least in an interview setup, there are studies which says that the first 90 seconds are very important. How you conduct yourself, how have you dressed, what is your posture, how are you greeting, are you coming in with an aura of positivity or confidence? All of that becomes really important. Don't underestimate such things. You might be the topper, you might know your legal stuff really well, and you might not be good in these soft skills. And that might actually take away your job to somebody else, right? So these things are very important. You must prepare some, advance. You must know your basic questions well. You must prepare, some very fundamental questions that will be asked of in an interview. Tell us about yourself. Make sure that what you're telling about yourself is what you actually want to tell about yourself in an interview setup, right? What is it that you want to project to the employer? How am I going to be a value add to the company, right? How I'm going to make sure that this answer is so convincing? What is it that you want to tell about yourself that this person thinks that that person can trust you, or he knows that he can be a better fit to the team? So think about these things from that perspective, right? Why, if you are interested in a specialization, why do you want to do competition law? Straight up second question. Why do you want to do competition law? Why do you want to do intellectual property law? Have a convincing answer. Not something that, and your resume for sure. Okay, so this thing I've noticed a lot. Your resume, there is always an introduction. Sometimes I see on certain resumes, there's an introduction. I'm a career-oriented, growth-driven, etc., etc. Don't write all of that. Of course, we know that, you want to apply for a job. So there are studies which say that a prospective employer, especially HR, when they come in for campus placements, they go through 500 resumes, right? They don't have the time to glance more than 10 seconds on a resume. There's a study on that. So make sure that your resume sets out those key points about your education, about your experiences on that front sheet. What is it that you want to communicate? that I'm academically good. I've done XYZ extracurricular activities. I've written XYZ articles, and these are my internships. So you know what? I'm a good prospective candidate, right? So make clear, very clear, very clear and concise, in a very clear and concise way in terms of what you want to tell your employer about yourself in your resume or in an interview. What are your strengths, weaknesses? Think about these questions. What are your achievements? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? There's one question that you might be asked, and if you're not clear about it, people will be like, "Oh, is this person really, does this person really want to make a career in a law firm?" If you're like, "मेरे को try करना है, let me see, get a feel of how things are." Why would I invest in you? Why would anybody invest in you? Because there's a lot of training, right? So make sure that you have some midterm goals set, or the answers are convincing enough to give that clarity to your employer that look, this person is fully invested. Of course, life can take you anywhere. Couple of years down the line, nobody can question that, right? But at that point in time, you yourself must be fully convinced that look, this is what I really want to do, right? So that's second. In terms of other interview questions, make sure that your subject knowledge based questions, your fundamentals are clear. Whatever you have written in your resume, it's all something that you would know in and out. Your behavior, room setup, all of that is extremely important. Whenever you go there, what are you wearing? How are you wearing your clothes, tie, etc., etc. It's just, are you coming across as somebody who is elegant, who is interested, who is sophisticated? Law firms, these things are important, So make sure that you dress well, so that your prospective employer knows that this person is somebody who is a perfect fit to the system. He has that sophistication. And of course, once your interview is done, then reflect on your performance. That's always very important. Irrespective of wherever you're interviewing or whatever you're doing, even after a good discussion, just reflect on your performance in terms of how you did, so that you become better for the next one, right? Because I mean, yeah, that's just a general life lesson that I have followed. So yeah, so reflect on your performance, and yes, I think one important thing is that whenever you're being asked a question by an interviewer, listen through the question. People try and jump in. Oh, you know what? I know the answer to this. Oh, wait, let me jump in. Don't do that. Take your time, listen properly, give attention to the person who is speaking, and then you respond, right? So yeah, that's all. Are there any questions that I can take up?
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for this insightful talk. I'd like to open the floor for some questions. I think there are already a few in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just respond to the first question on IP internships. So yes, of course, if you have more exposure in doing internships with IP teams or multiple law firms, then of course you'll be a preferred candidate. No doubt about that. As opposed to somebody who would have more diverse exposure, right? So it depends where you're applying. So if you're applying for an IP specific team, then of course this experience will be more relevant, right? But if you're applying for a more generic position, let's say in an in-house or in a litigation setup, or not a specific team in a firm, then maybe this is not relevant, right? What if after doing all the 4 IP internships, you realize that this is not what you want to do? So what my suggestion to you would be is that explore different areas of law in your formative years of career. Maybe 5th year is something that you can start focusing on a particular area of law. And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with that. If you're really, for instance, interested in securities law practice, and you know that the more you read it, the more you like it, and you don't feel that you don't have a sense of time, as opposed to when you're reading other subjects, then maybe you've found your passion, right? So that's very subjective, but definitely this will help if you want to get a IP, a job, or if you want to work with an intellectual property team. CGPAs, what is a good CGPA? Every university has very different ranks, in terms of the numbers. Some have CGPAs out of 10, some have some other criteria. So I really don't know about that. Maybe that's best answered by somebody who's in the HR team. But yes, your overall resume is never looked at just on the basis of CGPA. Never. If you have the best CGPA, don't assume that you're the best person out there. Your overall resume has to be built up really well in terms of what you have done, what extracurricular activities you have done, what publications, what moot courts, what kind of internships, all of it put together. You might not just have the best of internships, but you might have written a wonderful article, right? Just so many ways to crack it in this day and age. I know that when I came to the university last time, a lot of you were asking questions, internship milna bahut mushkil. I agree, it's very difficult. Right? But keep working at it, guys. Keep writing. If you keep writing, and people read it, you will crack it someday, right? I'll go to the next question. How to go about choosing which firms I want to appear for during placements? What parameters should one consider? It's a very subjective question. It's a very subjective question. I don't think I can answer this. But you must know yourself, right? You must have done your own research, and then you must have done few internships, and you would have made your mind, what are the firms that I should sit for. And you yourself must be able to answer this. No third party can answer this question for you, except maybe your parents. But yeah, it depends on whether you want to go for a band 1 firm, band 2 firm. There's so many choices, and there are so many different ways of thinking about it. If you want to actually apply for a band 2 firm and not a band 1 firm, it's perfectly fine. Your reasons for applying in a band 2 firm can be completely different. You might want to get, a different kind of an exposure, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that as well. You might want to apply in an AZB over a Shardul Amachan, or vice versa, whatever it is, right? It's you might have, but this is all subjective reasoning. Ideal CV should look like. Okay. So my CV is based on the general template from 2010 or 2011. So I hope it's the same. But so basically, look, your CV has to first talk about, like I said, no unnecessary gyan. Limit your words. Make it very concise. Make it very clear. It should always start with educational qualifications, where you're schooling from, whether you're from science, commerce, what background. Then you move on to the kind of CGPA that you have in the college. Have you participated in any events? Have you led any events? Have you organized any of these moot courts? Have you participated in moot courts? Write about your extracurricular activities as well. If you're into sports, write about it, right? And then you move on to your work-specific experience, internship experience, right? Internship experience, you must write down, of course, the name of the company, the timeline during which you interned, 2-3 key highlights of your internship, what you did, which you're confident about, right? And then you talk about your publications once your internship section is over. Then you talk about your internships, etc., etc. That's all. Publications are important. If you have done, those are important. Write about that as well. But broader, one important point, you should try and make it a one-page CV. It should not go to the second page. To the extent possible, just have a one-page CV. People don't have time to go to the second page. And that's the reality, right? So you know who your target audience is. And if you can summarize things well, you can write in a concise manner, you will get an extra point that, oh my God, this person's drafting is so good that he or she has been able to communicate things in such a short way, despite not losing any meaning out of it. So try and make it a one-page CV, especially as a fresh graduate. How do we quote someone on LinkedIn in terms of help? I don't want to answer that. Can I still get a placement? First and second year. Can I still get a placement if I start preparing from the third year? I haven't done much in my first or second year. Okay. Okay. If you haven't done anything in your first and second year, then you have lost 2 years. Okay. Maybe you were gaining experience in certain other aspects of life and not really focused towards your career. So once you start focusing on your career, right, you can't expect immediate results. Just can't, right? But once you start putting those efforts, don't think about placement. Is placement the end goal? It shouldn't be. Placement should not be your end goal. You must strive to become a good lawyer. The moment your energies are focused towards becoming a good, great legal professional or a great academician or whatever it is that you want to do, you will be there. Don't worry, people will pick you up. So ये जो attitude है ना, placement की वजह से ही करना है सब कुछ, don't do that, guys. You might be the top ranker, you might be the best, right? Don't do things just to get a placement. That's not a good way of thinking about things. Do it because you want to be the best at it, right? But not to get placement. Does courses, and I know it's a very different thought process. I know you might feel, ये तो इधर बैठा हुआ है, now he might say all these broader ज्ञान and stuff. It's not that. I have also gone through it, and I know there is pressure. I had pressure as well. It's not that I did not, right? But even in those times, I wanted to give my best effort. Just the best effort in whatever I do. Be strategic about it. Like I said, publish more, do this, do that, right? As long as your efforts are in the right direction, you will get it. There's courses like company secretary. Yes, company secretary, if you want to do an in-house role, extremely important. And because a lot of in-house work is compliance oriented. So very good, top-notch in-house if you have a legal degree along with CS. It's great. It's a great to have that degree, and people really succeed. In law firm, maybe not, but in in-house, definitely a great degree to have. So ranking of things, it has to be grades, internships, and then extracurricular. tentatively, but it's not like, it's actually not a rank. It's more about how you holistically come across. Actually, I have never thought about it in terms of ranking one over the other. You might just have done some great publication, and if one reads it, you might not have the best of grades or not the best of extracurricular activities, but you might just be so impressive. So it depends. It's not important to have your CV define a specific area of interest at the outset. Neither should you. If you genuinely have developed interest in a particular subject area, you must pursue that area. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not an important prerequisite. I must have a specific identified area of interest so that I get a job or I get placed. No, be genuine. Just be genuine to the people who are recruiting you and to yourself, first of all. You might land up a job which you just don't like. What will you do every day? Just think about it. Life can be so miserable. Don't do that to yourself. If you haven't identified a specific area of interest, it's okay. Take your time. Be more generalist. It's perfectly fine. Grades and CGPA. Okay, so I'm not answering that. It is important. So it just reflects that you have really devoted time in your studies as well. And that you were serious about becoming a good lawyer, like I said, right? If you haven't studied at all, then I mean, and a suit story happening is quite rare, right? So, prefer that we write. You must write your internship experience. Mention the names wherever you have interned, even if you want to qualify it by one bullet point in terms of what you have done. Let's say you have done 10 internships. The resume doesn't fit in one page. Write those 10 internships. Don't give a lot of yarn about what all you have done. Just write one bullet point about what was your key highlight so that it all gets fit into that one page. Possibly 1.5 pages is fine, but try and keep it to one page. So moods, again, it's okay. I mean, if you have good grades, good internships, like I said, it is a holistic assessment, right? Simply because you miss out on one thing doesn't mean that you are rejected in itself. But if you have it, it's great. It just shows that you have like done extracurricular things which are so much relevant to what you intend to do. So is it true that 5-year students are preferred over 3 years? I don't know what that means. Like if you're in your 5th year, you're preferred in terms of recruitment over 3 years.
So I think that it pertains to the kind of course that they're doing. So there are two options. One is a 5-year BBA or BA LLB, and one is a 3-year just LLB or BALS degree. So I think the question is pertaining to that.
Okay. I don't think so. I mean, you have a good CV, you have doing well. Why not? Why would there be any dissimilar treatment? Or there should not be one at least. What are the chances of getting placed at a firm you have already interned with but haven't gotten an assessment internship? It's not like you're totally out of picture, right? You can still apply for campus placement. But yeah, the fact that you haven't gotten a placement, an assessment internship, means that the team has assessed you when they were not comfortable giving you an assessment internship. But it still doesn't mean that you can lose all your hopes. You can still apply for it. I think that's okay. The last question, what if you have recently come across a subject and find yourself interested in it, but did not have the chance to intern in that sector? How will that affect your placement if you want to apply in that sector itself? So I think that this is a stage where you should be cautious because you have just exposure towards reading that subject and you can't take a huge decision of working in that sector simply by reading that subject, unless you have some experience, even if it's just one internship, two internships. So that subject might not turn out to be your area of interest. So no, I think do more in it, you know. So yeah, it seems like, you know, don't take such decision, guys. Simply because you read something and like something, you must, if you read something, then you must get some exposure on that aspect, and then you decide whether you want to just do that for the rest of your life, because you are too young to decide, you know, ये मैंने पढ़ लिया, I have read electricity bill, अब तो मेरे को electricity bill lawyer ही बनना है, you know, electricity act, sorry. So it's just, you know, you're too young to take those kind of decisions. If you have just read it, don't take a decision. If you have worked in it, it's fine. I think with that, I've covered most of the questions. I might have missed a few, but thank you so much, guys. That's all from my side.
I would once again like to thank our speaker today for the amazing session that was conducted. If there are any other questions, we can conduct a part 2. Further, I would like to thank the Office of Alumni Relations for organizing this wonderful seminar, as well as our esteemed guest for taking the time out of his schedule to be here with us today to share his wisdom and help guide our students. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.